Here's Johnny.
You don't get much irony in horror. You get buckets of fake blood, and you have a dozen of plot holes to get twisted up in. But The Omen, 1976, in a very dark, very deathly way, was ironic. Somehow, a film about the rise of the Antichrist, in other words, the end of the world, would be accompanied by wild animal attacks, sudden deaths, and even a decapitation. Yep, The Omen was, well, an omen. In fact, this cult classic horror flick is known as one of the most cursed films to date, as a result of the story being put to the screen and the infamous events that took place behind it. But at least the good news is, we're gonna get another Omen movie, which will be the mother of all Omen movies. Will it bring on more omens, tragedies, curses? Well, I guess it depends on how accurate the portrayal of the Omen is to the prophecies of the Antichrist. But to go down this devil's hole… Okay, that sounded wrong on so many levels. Let's stick to the rabbit. But to go down this rabbit hole, we'll have to recap The Omen. The Bible is undoubtedly the best-selling book of all time, and just like many other chart-topping hits, it's been turned into a whole host of films. Each has suffered its own onslaught of criticism for its unique take on scripture. The Omen is one of them. But The Omen doesn't follow Jesus' life story, nor does it CGI various jungle animals into Noah's Ark. It follows the Antichrist from birth to demise across 3 films. It charts the rise of Damien as he develops his paranormal powers and loosely fulfills the prophecies set out for the devil's spawn. Our story starts at his mysterious birth after a woman has a stillborn child. Her husband swaps it for a child whose mother died at birth. When Damien is just 5 years old, strange things begin to occur. Animals act strangely around him, various aggressive dogs appear. Oh, and Damien's nanny rudely interrupts his birthday party by throwing herself out a window with a noose around her neck. And then enters a new nanny, who is less Mary Poppins and more Mary, most definitely a Satanist who wants to protect Damien and overthrow Christ. But things get worse when everyone around Damien begins to slowly work out that he may or may not be the Antichrist, and in turn get killed in an assorted, horrific, but also mildly hysterical ways. It's the father of Damien, the adoptive one, not the actual devil, who leads the investigation into his origins. He traces back Damien's origins back to his dead mother's grave. Turns out, she was a jackal. Enter the Antichrist expert. He gives Damien's father the lowdown on dealing with demonic children. He has to be killed on hallowed ground with a collection of creepy knives. He takes the daggers of Megiddo and his infant son into a local church, forces him onto the altar, and prepares to kill him. But the police have to shoot him down before he can do this. The following films chase up the rest of Damien's short but eventful life and include even a last-minute cameo of JC himself. Unlike most horror franchises, however, The Omen is not based on some paranormal investigation or a forgotten urban legend. The story inspiring is kept very close to the hearts of many around the world. But like most things mentioned in the Bible, things are typically vague or lost in translation. This means many concepts and stories have been rewritten and rethought in numerous different ways. The Omen kinda had to connect the dots. But there are a few defining features of Damien and his life story which are uncomfortably close to what might just be the apocalypse. First, the Antichrist is supposed to be born as the opposite of Christ, basically from Satan. Whilst we do know Damien is the spawn of Satan, his animal mother, which is referenced later in the franchise when Damien is discovered to have jackal bone marrow cells, is a reference to jackals' biblical presence as tricksters. The Omen also sticks to the dominant line of thought of Damien's career path. The Antichrist is mentioned 3 times in the New Testament and follows the end of the world, something we see in the dying moments of the final film. The Book of Revelation and other prophetic texts claim he will rule for 7 years before being defeated by JC. He will be a tyrant, a trickster, rise to power, and perhaps claim he is a messiah. The Omen is an abridged version of this. Damien is at one point a CEO and then an ambassador to the US before he sees an image of Christ when he gives out his last breath. But here's the thing. Everyone has a different take on how the Antichrist will take his first step to almighty power before being dethroned by JC. And everyone has a different take on who it is. Donald Trump, Hillary Clinton, the Pope. I'm pretty sure all of the popes have been accused of being Antichrist. But also celebrities. Type in a celebrity name, literally any celebrity name, and the word Antichrist into Google, and there will be proof. The Omen is just another version of how the Antichrist could rise and fall. The Omen does include a few other suitably satanic references. The daggers of Megiddo don't actually exist according to lore, but are associated with the end of the world. Megiddo is the site of the final battle between the Antichrist and Jesus Christ as mentioned in the book of Revelation. Its Greek name is Armageddon. We also see throughout the franchise a Satanist plot to ensure the Antichrist grows up safely and is ready to do his dark bidding. Modern theorists claim that the Antichrist will arrive hand in hand with the satanic plot to overturn the Christian faith. The Omen effectively charts out how the world might end, but for many people working on the film, they were experiencing hell in their own way. What really happened on the set of The Omen? An omen is defined as a phenomenon that predicts and hints at the future, or signals a change. The birth and rise of the Antichrist probably fits the definition as it signals the second coming of Christ, Judgment Day, and numerous other events anticipated by Christians across the globe. It is an omen for the end of the world. Hell is the ultimate omen. It doesn't get more omeny than that. But The Omen was an omen for the people producing the film, and here's why. Gregory Peck allegedly cancelled his seat on a flight that would crash and kill everyone on board. When he did finally get on a plane and flew to England, his plane was struck by lightning. The film writers experienced the same on separate flight days after Peck's. The producers and some actors also nearly attended a restaurant one evening when it was destroyed in an explosion. The special effects designer witnessed traumatic events mirroring the movie far too closely too. His wife was decapitated in a car crash, a similar event to one we saw in the film. Even an animal trainer used for a scene from which baboons act wildly and crazed around Damien was killed after being mauled by a tiger. Yeah, it was all very omeny. And now, in 2024, it's time to find out what happened before the 1976 classic. The official synopsis for the first Omen from 20th Century Studios reads, when a young American woman is sent to Rome to begin a life of service to the church, she encounters a darkness that causes her to question her own faith and uncovers a terrifying conspiracy that hopes to bring about the birth of evil incarnate. As the title suggests, the first Omen will serve as a prequel to the 1976 film The Omen and will include the character of Father Brennan. In 1976, The Omen Father Brennan was played by Patrick Troughton, who was in his mid-50s at the time. In the first Omen, that role is played by Ralph Ineson, who is currently in his 50s, suggesting the prequel may be set only a short time before the events of The Omen. Now, before you go to bed and have nightmares, remember, it's up to you how much of it you actually want to believe, or would you believe it at all?